So what else can we do, though, at home? I see you've got some devices here that suggest that we might be able to do some things without having to go to an expensive clinic.
Well, again, if you can solve the problem at home, then of course you can save money. In many instances, I think you still might need to go to a professional. What you can do at home, I mean, you can brush your tongue, and there's a wide variety of tongue scrapers available. The trick here is to get way back where the mucus is. That's a little bit of a difficult task because we tend to gag there. But if you practice, every day you go a little bit farther, you'll eventually be able to clean there.
Any suggestions on how we can overcome that tendency to gag?
Just practice. It goes away with about 2 weeks of practice. I had gagging reflex. Now I think I could stick almost anything down my mouth if it were to fit there. Essentially, what you have to do is just scrape gently towards the front of the tongue, okay? Don't damage your tongue. Don't scrape too hard. The idea is to get the coating off and...
So what color should the tongue be then when you've got it clean?
Oh, this is a question that I'm going to ask you in a few minutes. I think that the color of the tongue is less important than getting way back there and cleaning it. Because if we say that people should have a pink tongue, then there are chances that people will work too hard at cleaning the tongue and then maybe do some damage. It's not good to hurt your tongue. So there's a difference in cleaning it and injuring it.
Okay, so we can mechanically clean the tongue with this device or a similar device. What else should we be doing in terms of preventing bad breath from developing? Are there other things that we can do at home? Okay,
well, in addition to cleaning your tongue, it's very important, in addition to brushing, to clean between your teeth. You're the periodontist of the two of us. What would you recommend? I mean, there's floss and there's interdental picks and there's proxa brushes and other items. So I guess that based on whatever your dentist or hygienist instructs you, this is the best way to clean in between your teeth.
Now, let's say you haven't got the time, or let's say you don't have the dexterity with your fingers. Are there other things that you can use? For example, this two-phase mouthwash, this oil and water mixture that you've got here. Could you talk a little bit more about what kinds of mouthwashes might be useful and which ones are going to do some good and which ones aren't?
Well, as you might have guessed, even though I'm a scientist, I don't know how objective I am about this particular mouthwash. But if you look in the scientific literature, there's a number of mouthwashes that have been shown to be effective in treating bad breath for 8 hours or more on the average. Okay? So clearly, in addition to ours, which I think is terrific, but I'm sure there's other good ones, you might consult with your dentist, and he might recommend a mouthwash to you, but you might want to ask him on what scientific grounds he would recommend this over another one. The best time to use mouthwash is right before you go to bed.
And I guess also for cleaning your mouth, that would be the most important time too, because isn't that when your saliva flow goes lower?
Right. During the night, saliva flow is almost nil. Almost no saliva flowing at night. And during that period, bacteria in the mouth proliferate, grow, smell, degrade all kinds of food that we have. So during that period of time, when the saliva isn't flowing, you have the greatest damage. And this is the time, before you go to bed, is the correct time to clean your mouth so that, and to use a mouthwash if you want to, so that the antibacterial agents stick around your mouth all night long and are active, and then chances are you'll wake up in the morning without jungle mouth or buffalo breath or whatever.
So morning breath then is very much a reflection of what you've just described. That is, that salivary flow goes down, bacteria start to grow and start to break down some of these sulfur-containing compounds in the mouth, and that's what gives us this bad smell in the morning.
Right. Well, I think there's other compounds in addition to sulfur, but certainly if you have the proper equipment, you can monitor the sulfur components, and of course we've done a lot of research on that, and many dentists now are able to monitor the sulfur component of bad breath in their clinic. It's very helpful when you start to treat and you want to see an improvement. But I would even go farther. Morning breath is the result of having a dry mouth all night long. Anything during the day that causes our mouth to dry out for long periods,
like public speaking.
Public speaking is a great example, are liable to cause bad breath. You're not of our persuasion, but if you go to synagogue at the end of Yom Kippur, there's something called Yom Kippur breath, which people think comes from their stomach. Researchers agree that bad breath almost never comes from your stomach. Yom Kippur breath at the end of a day of fasting probably comes from having your mouth dry all day, from having poor saliva flow, and nothing to chew on. So anything that causes you to dry out, public speaking, even being under stress, is liable to cause your mouth to dry out and to give you some odor.
But you suggested a few minutes ago, Mel, something that I didn't really follow up with you, and that is the notion, the idea that most bad breath is coming from the mouth. But then you talked about some other areas that are rare, but that they do occur. Can you give us some examples of maybe medical conditions or other kinds of situations that can cause bad breath? And should we ever be concerned about these things?
Oh, yes, I think that we should. Well, first, we have to exhaust the common problem. In other words, we have to try and solve the problem at the level of the mouth. If not, then the level of the nose, and then to look for other problems. Certainly, hundreds of medical problems and conditions can cause bad breath, but they're very rare. I mean, maybe altogether they make up 1% of the cases. So certainly, those are things that you should look for after you've exhausted the other possible causes. I can give you a few examples. In children, for example, children will often develop a foul odor that seems to come from their whole body. And more likely than not, they have stuck something up their nose called a foreign body. Young children, the age of 2 or 3, will essentially stick things up their nose. And if they are soft and they collect some water or moisture, they will rot in the child's nose. And the smell is so awful it appears to be coming from the entire body. We had a case of a 28-year-old girl who had placed a plastic bead up her nose at the age of 2 or 3, and it had sat there for 25 years. So foreign bodies in children are an example. Some professionals think that tonsils may be involved in bad breath. Certainly tonsils can be involved in perceived bad breath. Some people have little stones called tonsilloliths that they can cough up onto their tongue, and these stones smell awful. I personally don't think that they cause bad breath, but they certainly cause the people who have them to think that they have terrible bad breath.
Now, you also talked very briefly about the idea that there might be some people who think they have bad breath, but actually don't. And they're convinced that this is a problem, and it may turn into a social dilemma for them. How can people like that recognize or understand that this isn't really a problem? Or convince themselves that it's not really a problem?
Okay, some of these people are very difficult to convince. I mean, as you know, I consult in several clinics, and people who come in and are sure that they have bad breath but do not are sometimes difficult to convince otherwise. But again, if you are able to consult with somebody in your family and trust them, then not only can they help you find out where the problem is coming from, but after you have, let's say, been to the dentist and gotten certain kinds of treatment, and after you're flossing your teeth and brushing your tongue and cleaning your mouth after cheese and rinsing with an effective mouthwash before you go to bed, these people can help you by telling you how good the treatment is, because you probably won't know yourself.
Well, it sounds like, Mel, that you and your colleagues have made a great deal of progress over the last 5 or 10 years in terms of, first of all, diagnosing bad breath problems at home and as well in clinics like the Fresh Breath clinics. It also sounds like you've made a lot of progress in terms of the scientific understanding and the basis for why bad breath occurs. And finally, it sounds like you've made some very interesting progress in the development of new products. This 2-phase mouthwash, like oil and water, sounds like a wonderful and very interesting approach for control of this problem. Mel, I'd like to thank you for coming and visiting us here in Toronto.
Well, thank you very much.